Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam Carswell, and today we are joined by Thomas Walls. Tom is the Liberland Minister of Foreign Affairs. Tom and I actually originally connected not too long ago here in Washington, D.C., which was a great experience. Tom, thank you for joining us, and do you have any opening remarks for our listeners?
Well, Adam, it's a pleasure to be with you and everyone out there in Radio Land. Some of my opening remarks, I was initially the U.S. representative for Liberland, and then I stepped up to the role of Minister of Foreign Affairs. I should point out that we also have a Secretary of State, Dr. Tariq Abbasi, who's based in London in the U.K., and we work together on many, many diplomatic aspects of promoting the Free Republic of Liberland. And, we execute our roles to the best of our own abilities. And I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Great. Well, let's get straight to it. I got to ask you, Tom, how did you begin your journey as a Liberlandian?
I tell you, it's something that sort of fell into my lap, and it was perfect for me. I heard about Liberland, and right after I read about it, I started following everything about it in the news and on social media. And it turns out that Vit Jedlicka, we had some friends in common. I didn't know Vit, but we, had some friends in common in the liberty movement. I followed everything they did. It sparked tremendous interest all over the world. But, I was able to get through. I sent an email to Vit about the mines in the area. Of course, during the war, Croatia and Serbia were fighting one another, and Yugoslavia broke up. Unfortunately, there's a lot of landmines in the area. So I sent a Vit an email with my concerns about the presence of landmines, and we discussed that a little bit. There's some NGOs looking up where the mines are located and trying to flag and tag them and remove them. So we corresponded about that. Luckily, there are no mines in the area.
Hey, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's good to know. So Vit was asking around who had diplomatic experience in the U.S., and I stepped forward. I worked at the U.S. consulate in Hamburg in Germany and at the U.S. Embassy office in Berlin. So I do have some diplomatic experience. I worked under the late Ambassador Richard Holbrooke when he was ambassador to Germany. So he later went on to broker the Dayton Accords between the warring parties in the Yugoslav wars. So he definitely was active in bringing peace to the former republics of Yugoslavia after they were, viciously, fighting one another in the 1990s. So right. I didn't work during that period, but I worked for him when he was the ambassador to Germany. His book To End a War is pretty good reading. Anyway, back to how I got involved.
Yeah.
Vit asked I wanted to be the U.S. representative since I had some experience and also some experience in the liberty and libertarian movement. So I stepped up to the plate and thought it was a great opportunity for me to get involved.
Yeah, and how long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
April 2015.
Okay, nice. Well, yeah, it's great to have someone with your spirit on this team. You can definitely tell the influence that you have made or created since joining the project, if you would say, in April 2015. I do have to ask you a side question. Did I hear a cat? Are you a cat guy?
Yeah, I do have a kitty cat running around here. I have another one, Smokey. They always usually accompany me during the daytime when I'm working on stuff. And, we thought about making Smoke. We don't know. We haven't decided whether we want to extend citizenship to pets or not. But Smokey the cat has expressed interest in being a Liberland citizen.
Hey, there's a first for everything.
That's right. Why not? So yeah, anything else you would like to know, I'll be glad to talk about. We've had a lot of very interesting and exciting experiences working with Liberland, and we'll be glad to talk about those. Let me let this kitty cat out. Well,
okay.
No, it's not a good time because all the cars are going by at this time coming.
Hey, no worries. It adds to the authenticity of this conversation.
Okay. But since I've been involved with Liberland, I've gotten to know so many interesting people from all over the world. And that's what I've always wanted to do. And if people, if you or anybody who's listening wants to get involved, they can do the same thing. we've had amazing experiences over in Serbia, in Liberland itself, in Croatia. We get to meet people who are veterans from those wars I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We got to plan a tour of some of those Yugoslavian area monuments that are all over the country there. We've been on diplomatic trips here in the U.S. We've organized meetings for Liberland supporters all over. We've done it in several countries. We were in Mexico earlier this year, Guatemala 2 years ago, Honduras earlier this year.
Wow.
Been over to the U.K. a few times. We went to a conference in Bosnia. We went to Kosovo, which people in Serbia still considers part of Serbia, but the people in Kosovo don't think so. Next week, right after Thanksgiving, I headed over to Rome for a Liberland event we're having there in Rome. I'll be speaking in Paris to another Liberland event. We have an event in the European Parliament office, actually in Brussels, the week after that. So I'll be going to that as well, and then I'll be headed back.
Wow, what a lineup. That's amazing. And I'm definitely interested on taking some more Yugoslavian tours with you. I'm actually 50% Slovenian. Now, my mother is definitely American, to say the least, but I do have Slovenian blood, and it is 6 p.m. where I am, so I must say to you, dobro večer.
Dobro večer, da. Bravo, kako ste? I know some Serbo-Croatian. I went through there a long time ago when I was in college. I hitchhiked through the area, okay. and I got to see a lot of it firsthand. I went. You
dodged all the landmines then.
I did dodge the landmines, so I have. I'm still intact. Knock on wood. But we went to Croatia as well earlier this year, and we saw some of the areas that were damaged in the war. Even in Zagreb, they got hit by a lot of rockets, and you can still see buildings where there's craters in the buildings, and there's monuments to people who were unfortunately casualties of the war. So it's still an issue that's in many people's minds. There's still people who were veterans or were wounded or were in camps after the battle. They were held in detention camps after they were captured. So and these resentment, kind of hostility, and other issues are still on people's minds because, on several sides there were war crimes that were committed. And, unfortunately, in times of war, atrocities do occur, and they affect people like nothing else. So that's something that's real in people's minds, and that's something as people who are involved in Liberland, we kind of have to keep those sensitivities in mind when we talk about borders and the people living there. And, the great thing about Liberland is we want to bring prosperity and development to places where they've been ravaged by war and they have total unemployment, and places like Vukovar, Croatia. It used to be a bustling town on the Danube, but now it's like very high unemployment. Since the war, it's been, it's become kind of a ghost town where young people are left because there's no jobs. If we can bring our model to that region of the Balkans on the Danube, hopefully we can, kickstart things. We're already doing that to a great extent in Serbia by bringing tourism, by bringing tech industry, by bringing other commercial activity in the fintech sector, to the country. We've already done so. We've already brought businesses there who've opened up offices in Belgrade. We've got people in Apatin working in the maritime industry where we have our ships working there. We've got people taking people around and populating bed and breakfasts and hotels and stuff. And we're hosting conferences there. We hosted a huge conference in Novi Sad a year ago, where we brought people there. It's really eye-opening what we're already doing. If we can get that message across to people in the rest of Serbia and also in Croatia, maybe they might be a little more favorable to what we're trying to do. I got to go to the Croatian Parliament in April, and I actually met several legislators. Wow. And, thanks to our friend in the Parliament there who's a supporter. I got to talk to a lot of people from different parties in Croatia, and they had heard about Liberland, but they didn't know much about it, and they didn't know what was going on with it currently. They thought, well, they read an article about it. They thought it was a joke. My presence there was really amazing to them, that we're actually, organized. We have a global organization and representatives who represent us and travel around and try to get, recognition and agreements. We want to move forward. And one of our challenges is, going beyond just getting a news article now and then. We want to be an actual presence and bringing business and bringing tourism and bringing other good things to the region.
Absolutely. It's, as you would say, or as you're explaining, slowly becoming a cradle of innovation for that portion, not only of Europe, but for the world. In my conversation a couple episodes ago with Gauthier Lemothe, he was talking about how interesting it is that for the most part, your average Liberlandian at this point speaks something like 3 or 4 languages. It's just absurd. And also how, when we are able to begin opening restaurants and facilities like that, what is the Liberland traditional dish going to be? A burrito with like Chinese spices on it. It's amazing.
Well, I'm a language buff myself. I'm also a translator on the side. I translate German, Dutch, and Spanish to English. When I go over there, I try to speak what the locals speak to the best of my ability. Since I'm going to Italy, I've been trying to watch an Italian movie every night.
Okay.
Getting up to my trip. And that's one great thing about it. Like I said, it goes back to, you meet so many different people and they're so interesting. You get to experience the food and the culture and the history. It's just so fascinating. And if you want to, anybody who wants to get involved with Liberland, this is all open to you. And it's, people are very interested in what we're doing since we're starting a country from scratch. Another thing that I like to see when I go over there, Liberland is on the Danube. It's surrounded by riverine forests. I love seeing these natural areas. I think when it comes to Liberland, we want to build something new while preserving the character of the region. I think we can do so. I'm a very, what you would call a green libertarian, probably in the tradition of Henry David Thoreau. If our listeners are familiar with him, if not, they, you
can look him up.
Yeah, Civil Disobedience is a great thing that he wrote. Well, he's famous for Walden, of course, on Walden Pond. So that's where he did a lot of his writing. I just the point I'm making there is I don't think there's a contradiction between pro-nature, pro-conservation, and pro-freedom and pro-free market. I think that those two actually go very well together because governments have been some of the biggest environmental destroyers in history. So, I would like to emphasize that aspect a little bit. And I think libertarianism, it works well in this context. And I think we have a lot of great solutions that use technology and use new innovations to making a new sustainable society with Liberland. And I think we've got some very, very interesting architectural projects that include that kind of character. And we had a competition where a lot of different architects and architectural agencies submitted their designs for what Liberland could look like. And some of it was just mind-blowing. And
Absolutely.
I encourage people to check that out.
Yeah, I want to touch on that actually real quick. The architectural designs that I've seen, there are some that are publicly out there on the internet that just look like Liberland is going to be the land of the Jetsons. Just looks amazing, incredible. Is that what you're talking about, or is there maybe some other cool architectural designs that?
Well, people have different opinions. Some of it's kind of futuristic and Jetsons, flying cars and stuff like that. Right now, with the way things are, we are using existing infrastructure to travel to the area, to bring investment. In Apatin, it's a marina. It's been a harbor port town for centuries. There's existing facilities where you could put boats and ships in dry dock, and of course, it was probably more active when it was Yugoslavia. But we want to bring investors in. I think that the main facility there at the harbor is for sale. So I think currently we can rely upon existing infrastructure. to bring business and development there.
Mm-hmm.
To nearby cities and towns where they have high and up to 30% unemployment. So I think we can build on the existing stuff without trying to build skyscrapers on where Liberland actually physically is right now. I think that could be our headquarters and our sort of our brain center, while using the surrounding area to there's train connection to Apatine. There's really good road connection. There's obviously the port connection as well. So I think we can use for the time being the existing infrastructure. And I think over time, as things grow, we'll see how that plays out. And I think if they just let Liberland live, we can show them what we can do.
Right. And I'm not sure, were you trying to include the nation motto in there when you said that?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
You said to live and let live. Yes,
live and let live. That's right. And that can be applied to nations as well, if that's what you meant.
You're right.
We didn't claim it by use of force. We're not seceding from anything, although it was part of Serbia. We're not a coup, and we're not trying to take over an existing state like, what happens in, banana republics and things like that. There's no claim or counterclaim on that territory from any other party other than us. And our formation is based on self-government, on its own people. We have about roughly 500 citizens right now, and they've all consented to, Liberland as a government. And we also have the tacit consent of Serbia. Actually, shortly after Liberland was proclaimed, they said, well, we probably don't take this issue that seriously, but we would like to state that Liberland is not formed on Serbian territory. Mm-hmm. So they essentially waived their own claim to what was formerly Serbia. So that was a very important, milestone, and where they mentioned us specifically by name, and they said we were not formed on their territory, with no commentary on Croatia or what they, are trying to do. Croatia, of course, as you know, doesn't claim it either. They insist it's Serbia, and Serbia doesn't want it. So that is where we come in, and we feel that our claim is justified. In one sense, we sort of agree with both sides in that Liberland is neither Serbia nor Croatia. Right. So that's where we are right now. Hopefully, my goal and our foreign policy is to have a seat at the table when they finally negotiate their border dispute, because there's 10 times the amount of Liberland's area that Croatia claims on the Serbian side. So they're going to have to figure that out at some point. They haven't done so for over 25 years. But when they finally do that, because, Serbia wants to join the EU, of course. Mm-hmm. EU doesn't want its member states having border disputes. They don't want to import, conflicts that are existing already. They'll probably have to iron that out at some point. And they've appointed commissions to do just that, but they haven't gotten anywhere in over 25 years. Our goal is to have a seat at the table when they do get that far. And right now we're showing people that we're serious. We're showing people that we can bring business and tourism to the region.
Right. It sounds like amazing experience after amazing experience. When I ask this question, it's okay if you can only think of one right now, but can you tell me a unique experience that you've had since joining the Liberland project?
Oh, wow. Everything's been unique. Last year we went on a trip. We went through let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 countries in about 2 days.
Wow.
That was an amazing experience. We went with one of our Polish representatives. We went from Poland to Slovakia to Hungary to Croatia. And we actually tried to go to Liberland, but we didn't make it on that trip. And then we went to Bosnia and the Republic of Kosovo. And then right after that, we went through Macedonia, and we went through Albania, and then Kosovo, and then Macedonia, and then back to Serbia. So within the space of 2 days, we went to all those countries. That That's an amazing experience. And I had to get my, being the language buff, I had to, get the right phrases in my head when we stopped in each place. I didn't know any Albanian, so that was the one that was but everybody spoke English. If you went through the region 20 years ago, very few people would have spoken English. Just about everyone we encountered knew at least some English. In Albania and Kosovo, a lot of people knew German from having lived in Germany. So that made it easy for me as well.
Wow. So we're getting close to the end here, but I do have a couple more questions for you. The first one would be, what advice do you have for, I know you already kind of mentioned a few things, but what advice do you have for anyone who's aspiring to become a Liberlandian? And in general, where do you see the country in 5 years?
Great questions. My advice for people who want to get involved is just, try to contribute in some unique way. Be creative, be bold. Very importantly, probably, first of all, follow us on social media, go to the website, apply, keep informed about what is happening with Liberland. We have what's called the Liberland Chamber of Commerce program, where you can open, like say, a U.S. Liberland Chamber of Commerce. You can work with our U.S. team on that one, or whatever country you live in. You can contribute, write articles, participate in discussions online. If you live in a particular state, start a state group. There's some openings there. Talk about Liberland to your congressman or legislator or senator. We need to figure out how to lobby Croatia somehow to allow us to let Liberland live. That's one thing. International diplomacy. I think we can exert some pressure there. I think they'll take us seriously if they know we have some people in the U.S. who are interested in seeing us prosper and develop in freedom and bring prosperity to that region, which is really suffered since the fall of Yugoslavia and since the wars. I think, especially with a lot of people with heritage in that area, I think they would be interested in seeing us succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So get involved online, contribute in some way. Reach out, start discussions, start a business, if you're interested in finance or cryptocurrency or anything like that, approach us and we see how you can get involved in some way. And where do I see us in a couple of years? Well, we want to be a recognized and visible voice in world affairs. I know we're very small, but I think we're very potent, and we already are. I see our role, in my role, developing a robust team globally. We don't want to have the bureaucracy of, like, say, the State Department, so it's going to have to be a bit decentralized and self-starting on people's parts. But I see us as having established formal ties in diplomatic ties with a number of nations. I think once we get a few in, more will start rolling in. That's the way it is with, going back to Kosovo. They've got, quite a few recognitions already, of course, but, you have power plays between the great powers, of course, when it comes to, like, Taiwan, for example. You've got China bullying other countries not to recognize Taiwan.
Right.
But a number of countries recognize them. So there's some, global interest that we have to take into account. But I think once we get a few recognitions, more will start rolling in. There's nobody that really, there's no great power that opposes us. So I think the more friends we make, the better off we'll be. And it's very easy to approach smaller countries like Liechtenstein. We've talked to the Prince of Hans Adam II of Liechtenstein. He says he looks forward to sitting next to us, because Liberland and Liechtenstein, are right after one another in the list of countries. But he never attends any of the meetings. So he said, well, he's actually very, very classical liberal and libertarian. He wrote a book about the state in the coming century, which is pretty interesting. So ideologically, we're very close to countries like that and smaller countries, and they're easier to approach. And I'm pretty optimistic about establishing relations. We already have relations. We don't have formal recognition, but we already have relations with Somaliland, which broke away from Somalia early 90s after the civil war there. We actually have an embassy there. So we do have relations, if not formal recognition with them. Of course, the first step is opening an office and, meeting with them and things like that. So we're learning as we're learning as we're going. It's something that it's fruitful, it's rewarding, and it's very fulfilling to embark on this role and try to create a new country with the vision of freedom.
Definitely could not have put that any better myself. This conversation has been re-inspiring for me. I hope the same for you and for anyone listening. Tom, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Is there a way anyone can connect with you or reach out to you after they listen to the interview?
Yeah, the email address for my office is foreign@liberland.org, foreign, FOREIGN, at liberland.org. Can be reached there. Also, follow us on social media. We'll see you on there. There's our Facebook page for Liberland. There's also our Twitter feed where we post stuff, and the website, liberland.org, where you can sign up. If you're in the United States, you can contact USA@liberland.org. Dave Molyneux is a very capable representative for Liberland in the United States. We have a growing U.S. team. If you're in a particular state, and if we don't have a chapter already, maybe we can create one. If you're in another country, if we don't have a Liberland organization, we can create one, or you can join the existing one. We certainly have a lot of roles to fill.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to it. It sounds like a call to action to me. Tom, thanks again for joining us today.
Adam, it was a pleasure to talk to you, and I will be glad to be back on at any time.
You got it. All right, guys, we will see you, or should I say catch you, in the next episode of the Liberland Show. Thanks for tuning in.